Is the iPhone 10 worth £1,000? Yeah, just about. Okay, so the first thing you'll notice about the iPhone 10 is the screen, the all-important window into a digital world that the iPhone tries to present you with. It's the biggest screen we've ever had on an iPhone, 5.8 inches as opposed to 5.5 on the 8 Plus and 4.7 on the 8. It's the sharpest ever. It's 458 pixels per inch, which is much higher than the 326 pixels per inch and 400 pixels per inch you get on the older models, month older models. It's still not quite as sharp as some of the rival models out there. More importantly, it is an OLED screen, and this is a new thing for Apple, which has previously used LCD screens. OLED screens are in most ways better than LCD. They're a bit more difficult to produce, but they produce better images. The colour is better, so the blacks are better, the whites are better, you get more contrast, and they're also more power efficient, so they should result in better battery life. There are a few downsides to the OLED technology, and one of them is image retention, which a few people have had problems with already. We haven't seen anything like this. But on an OLED screen, if you have a static image on screen for a long time, it could burn in and you'd be stuck with it and it would stay on the screen. And some people say this has happened already with their iPhone 10s. The only other thing about the screen that you might not like is the notch, which is this little chunk taken out the top of it, which contains a lot of very important sensors and arrays and things like that. This is not very obvious to you most of the time, and we think you'll get used to it. But when you're using the device in landscape mode to watch a video and then you zoom in, you'll find that it takes a chunk out of the picture, and that's very annoying. In terms of design and build quality, it's obviously a beautiful device. It's an iPhone. Some people are a bit worried about the glass back. They think it's more prone to scratching. They think it's more prone to breaking and shattering if you drop it than recent devices, which have tended to be metal backed. You need to be careful with it. You need to use a case, ideally. One thing that we don't particularly like about the design is the amount that the camera on the rear sticks out. It actually sticks out even more than the camera on the 8 Plus, and it's got sharper edges around the rim. We strongly recommend using a case because that will allow you to lay it flat on a table without it being raised slightly up and scratching on the table as it used to do. There's also no headphone port. If that's the sort of thing that annoys you, you might want to steer clear. It does come with an adapter though, a Lightning 2 headphone adapter, so you can still use your headphones, but it's an extra dongle to worry about. You'll notice that there's no home button. That's been taken away. That's one of the ways that Apple has expanded the amount of screen space. Because there's no home button, then that means there is no Touch ID fingerprint scanner. That's been replaced by something called Face ID, which I'll talk about in a moment. But a lot of them are replaced by the side button, or the power button. They've sort of renamed it because it does more things now. So screenshots, for example, which used to be the power button and the home button, are now the power button and the volume up button, and various things like that that you have to get used to. A few of them are a bit difficult though. One of them that I have issues with is reachability. The iPhone 10 has the biggest screen yet, so you really do need some ability to get to the top. You'll see that I'm trying pathetically to reach the top right corner, which is, by the way, where you get to Control Center. That's been moved from the bottom, it's now at the top. So in order to get to that, you're going to want reachability, and reachability is now performed by doing a little swipe gesture on the bottom of the screen. And it's very fiddly, and it takes a lot of getting used to, so we think that's a shame. The other features, the other gestures rather, we think you'll get used to fine, but it's going to be difficult at first. The second big change after the big sharp screen is Face ID, which we have because there's no home button. Face ID is a very sophisticated face mapping, scanning technology that Apple has come up with. And it completely replaces Touch ID. So there's no backup of Touch ID. We thought maybe Apple would move the fingerprint scanner to the back of the device, as some Android phones do. They thought they might even be able to get it under the screen, so you just press somewhere on the screen and the fingerprint would be detected. They've not chosen or been able to do either of those things. So all you have is Face ID, and then as a backup, a passcode. You have to have a passcode. So far, and we've not tested this as much as we'd like, Face ID seems to be reliable and fast. The face scanning technology is three-dimensional, so people shouldn't be able to use a picture of your face. They would have to 3D scan your face, and I think even that would probably not work because it uses infrared. We've tested out a few gimmicks. We've tried it with big sunglasses, we've tried it with a scarf covering the lower part of the face. It generally seems to be able to cope with that. Apple has actually boasted that you'll be able to have a beard, you better grow a beard after setting up Face ID and it will still know that it's you. And what is more, that it will then learn more about the contours of your face by seeing different versions of it. I haven't grown a beard since I first got this, but it seems to be really good, it seems to be fast. It takes about a second to unlock, which is slower than second gen Touch ID, which I'm going to miss. I think second gen Touch ID was fantastic and very reliable and very fast. And there's more of an involved process with this. So you have to look at it. By default, the setting is that you have to have your eyes open and be looking at the device. You can turn off the business about eyes open if you have trouble doing that, but it is recommended because otherwise people can just put the phone in front of your face when you're asleep and unlock it. So it's much more difficult to just subtly look at your phone when you're talking to people and just open it as you used to do with Touch ID. But it seems like a great technology. It's also used for Apple Pay and various other things like that. One extra aspect of this is that Apple can use that 3D scanning data, or it can open it up to other app makers to make fun experiences. And one of the examples of that at launch is Animojis, which is only accessed via the Messages app. So if you're sending somebody an iMessage, you can then open up the Animoji palette, select one of the animal faces or a robot face, and then it will map your face to the movement of the animal. So then you sing along to a song or you say something, and then you can send a video of that. It's very cool, it's very fun, it's a bit silly, it's a bit gimmicky, but we're quite liking what Apple is doing with the new technology. The cameras on the iPhone X are largely the same as the cameras on the iPhone 8 Plus, which means you get portrait mode and portrait lighting. Portrait mode is fantastic. We discussed this in more depth elsewhere. Best used outside in good light, but if you do that, you can take fantastic photos. Portrait lighting is less good, still in beta, a bit wobbly. It adds various lighting filters to your shots. Occasionally it's good, usually it's not. The interesting thing about the iPhone X is that those features, portrait lighting and portrait mode, are both available on the front-facing camera as well, which we have our doubts about because Apple used to say that the optimum distance for portrait mode was 8 feet. And unless you have 8-foot-long arms, you're not going to be able to do that very well. You could always use a selfie stick. The back lenses on the camera have been improved slightly, particularly in the case that they are both now have optical image stabilization instead of just one of them. But in the main, this is photographically the same as the iPhone 8 Plus. In terms of speed, again, this is very similar to the 8 Plus. It has the A11 Bionic processor chip. It has 3 gig of RAM, which is the same as the 8 Plus. The 8 only had 2. Which we can only describe as extremely fast. That's the best way of thinking of it. It's massive overkill for the current range of apps. It will destroy anything you put on it. You should think of it primarily in terms of future-proofing because this raises the bar for all app developers in the future, and then they will produce more demanding software that you will then be able to run. At the moment, wireless charging on all 3 of these models is capped at a speed of 5 watts. Many wireless charging pads that you'll find on the market are 7.5 watts, occasionally even more, occasionally as high as 15 watts. They are going to make an update to the iPhone X, a software update, which will unlock 7.5 watt charging speeds. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We come down to the final decision, should you buy it? It costs £1,000, that's the basic model. The 256 gig model is £1,149. These are crazy amounts of money. Is it worth it? If you can live with the things that have been taken away, if you're desperate for the things that are new, particularly Face ID and Animoji, then you may find that it is worth the eye-watering amounts of money that they're charging. And we cannot help loving it. We think this is a wonderful phone.